Greetings, Earthlings. Midnight Miles here, your big brother and eye in the sky, giving you the lowdown on what's going on in the heavens. So listen, The Rock is being primed to be president. On all accords, it's written in the stars, it's written in the mythology, and most importantly, it's written in the political narrative. And I'm here to prove it. I have my theory. It has multiple connections, not only in mythology, but also in modern politics and how those two intersect. And The Rock is actually a textbook example of how fiction and reality are one and the same. Of how history is a narrative and it's his story. Okay? So, let's talk about The Rock. He is America's action hero. All right, we know him as the Scorpion King. We know him as Hercules, Hobbs and Shaw. He is our big brother. And it's funny, we should mention him as being big brother and mentor because there's actually a divine pair of a solar hero that is the Christ return. Okay? The presidential elections are actually set up to be the return of the Christ. It is linked with the Sothic cycle. The Sothic cycle is the star Sirius. And how every 4 years, Sirius would have a return. And this represents the floods of Egypt and Osiris coming back. It's pretty laden in Egyptian mythology, right? But you have the return of the solar hero, the return of fertility. So the presidential election is actually lined up with the Sothic cycle. That's why it's every 4 years. That's also why it occurs on a leap year. So the president is the solar hero. Speaking of solar heroes, we need to talk about the hero's journey. All right, and Hercules' role within it, and the 12 trials of Hercules. Because really what Hercules is about the best of man becoming God through the 12 labors. The 12 labors represent the 12 signs, and eventually Hercules becomes man, demigod, God. Alright? It is this God who is the savior of people. Well, the same story isn't just told in Hercules, including his 12 labors and what he represents. It is actually told in ancient Indian texts. Hercules and the god Balarama are one and the same. They are both strong men. They are both represent agriculture and fertility. They both carry a club and wear a impenetrable lion or tiger skin. Okay? Hercules and Balarama are one and the same. And this has been noted throughout history. There is multiple historical texts going far back as Dodorius, which is, ancient Roman times. It has been established that Hercules and Balarama are one and the same. Another mythological name intertwining we have is Balarama and Balaam. Alright, if we go all the way back into Zoroastrianism, okay, Balaam is the same hero. So we have roots in India, we have roots in Iran and Zoroaster. And in the Indian text, Balarama is the older brother of Krishna. So you have Balarama, the strong man, and Krishna, the beloved. We're going to see this theme come back later in Arnold Schwarzenegger and The Rock, both starring in the movie Twins. This case, we have The Rock alternate his twin, Kevin Hart. You notice they star in a lot of movies together, but let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Alright, so we've got Balarama, who is Hercules. Alright? Balarama, who is also the twin of Krishna. Now, Balarama, in his own right, is a savior hero. He is a messiah. He comes back to save people. You see this motif in the Bible with the warrior Messiah and then the spiritual Messiah whenever you look at David and then his son Solomon. Even though they are father and son, mythologically speaking, they're more like big brother, little brother. That happens. Sometimes you'll see that relationship where an older brother, younger brother situation is, older brother gets turned into a father figure. In fact, if we're going on the older brother, younger brother theme and we're tying it to The Rock and we're doing the 6 degrees of separation here, we have a new Fast 9 movie coming out, Fast and the Furious, okay? And if you look, Dom, who is, you know, no doubt our solar hero, he leads the team, he is the strong man, he is big on family, is having to face his older brother. So that theme is there again. The older brother solar hero dark side combo. The Rock also starring in Black Adam, who acts as an older brother and predecessor to Shazam. So here again we have these links, and this is how you have to look at mythology. Okay, it's the linkage. All right, we have the twin mythology. If we're looking right now, we have The Rock as Hercules, and still filling that Balderrama placeholder. Okay, I actually had to have notes here because it goes in kind of deep, and I'm trying to get it encapsulated for you guys so you can see how it all works. Mythology has been deeply incorporated into public narrative since the beginning of time. You can look at it in the Bible with Josephus Flavius. That's a whole other story. You know, look up, look at, what was it? Caesar's Messiah. Check that out, and that'll give you a pretty good idea what we're talking about here. But anyway, all right, another form of Hercules, and actually it's a form of Achilles. Another form of Achilles is Memnon. Now, Memnon is in Egypt, okay? Memnon is Ethiopian. He is considered on par with Achilles. In fact, he's killed by Achilles, right? So Memnon is also a representative of what we would consider the Egyptian Hercules via the Egyptian Achilles, because if you go into your mythology, okay, Achilles and Hercules share lineage. They share training, they share an archetypal role. So you could actually put a hyphen between Hercules and Achilles. That is very important. Yeah, got the kids out here playing. You know, settle down, class, settle down. You know. Hercules, Achilles, Perseus, okay, they all share this hero's line. This is the hero's journey, and this is important, right? So we've got Memnon as Achilles as Hercules. Why is this important? Let's go back in time and through The Rock's roles. Not only has The Rock played Hercules, okay, we know him as the Scorpion King. The Scorpion King who initially overcame Imhotep. The Scorpion King, okay, the Herculean hero who defeats Memnon. Once again, we have The Rock as a form of Hercules Achilles through his act of the Scorpion King. All right, Hercules, Achilles, we have this link. Now, The Rock is what? He's Hercules, but he's also the Brahma Bull. That's the name he named himself because he's a Taurus. Now, if we talk about the Brahma Bull, we're talking about the Apis Bull. Okay, we're talking again about the strongman myth because we're talking about the age of Taurus. This was when agriculture and building was big, and you know, the plow and working the land and really reaping the vegetation. Hercules and Balderrama have a club, but they also have a giant plow. So they represent the Taurian strength. They represent the Taurian strength, but then they're also like man is God. Like there's a whole transcendentalism that goes with that. That's actually what the 12 Trials of Hercules is about. Balderrama goes through the same thing as being a man and then shedding your skin and then stepping into your godhood. There's a lot of that going on here. All right, the transformation into godhood. And in this perspective, it's done through media. It's done through the movies, right? Because if we were to look at all of The Rock's movies, it actually mimics the 12 Trials of Hercules, including the Orphic Mysteries. Now, what are the Orphic Mysteries? Underworld, okay? Orpheus, let's go Underworld. Chthonic. Your word of the day is chthonic. C-T-H-O, thonic, all right? Look that up. Hercules is also a chthonic hero. He goes into the underworld, dies, comes back. All right, there is a big rebirth element that happens. We have the same thing that happens with the Scorpion King, who represents in a way also Osiris, a tragic Osiris. Yeah. You see this twice. You see this again, almost as the Scorpion King is the dark twin of Imhotep. That's funny. That's funny, yeah. So you have the Scorpion King being the brother of Imhotep. If you do your research, you know that there's a linkage between Imhotep and Krishna. Okay, so there goes the brothers theme again. Right? Hercules, the brothers, ancient godhood status. Alright? Keep up with me here, because this is how utilizing ancient mythology and creating a cultural figure translates into the culture hero. And this is how you modernize it into the 21st century. We're not farmers anymore, okay? We don't stare at the stars the way we used to. We don't have agricultural issues other than transportation, Monsanto, okay? What is our modern gods? Our modern mythology is played out through media and through essentially currency, right? That is the new power system. It's image, it's money, it's digital. However, it still applies to the same archetypal structures. Politics, the exact same way. They've been utilizing archetypal structures for political gains since the invention of the king and the minister. Okay? It's all professional wrestling. Okay? It's all storytelling. Which leads us to why The Rock is actually the next political hero, representing the solar hero. Okay? Part 2. Political ties, political narrative. The Rock is currently a hybridization of Ronald Reagan, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Obama, Hercules. He is the modern American myth. This is also a political model. The solar hero, the American hero, the cultural hero. And he's the light version of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a forerunner because now America is finally ready for a TV president. Professional wrestling, the grand stage. Hold on, let me put in my crystals. This it helps with channeling, because this is some pertinent information and it needs to be communicated properly. I got notes. Hopefully I got your attention, because it's coming in quick. The most important time frame of our modern world and where we are, including in world status, occurs between the late 60s to the 80s. All right? What we're really talking about here is the power of television and the power of mass media, and you could say COINTELPRO. But what we're really talking about is images without borders. We're talking about combined culture. You will never know how powerful of a weapon, how powerful of an influence MTV and cable television really were in the 80s. Do you understand that the Beatles had MI6 heavily interested in their activity because their ability to rally the youth, especially that of young girls? There was a fear of mass suicide if anything happened to our beloved Beatles. So what do you think they did with Elvis? Okay? What do you think they did with Ronald Reagan? It's been long known that the CIA in Hollywood have a very tight relationship. In fact, everybody knows that Elvis worked for the CIA and several other actors as well. You know, they were great to get over into foreign countries to act as delegates and public spokesmen. Because the CIA doesn't deal with primarily cloak and dagger, to be honest with you. It's a lot of briefcases and unattached business. If you really want to know what the CIA is, it's private contracting, right? It's politics by another means moved over into the private industry, still serving political realm, right? Long story short, it's like the government but a corporation, and so it's a citizen, so it's untouchable and doesn't play by the same rules as the government, and so is heavily involved in citizen activity and has plausible deniability because it operates through the machinery of the corporate industrial complex. In other words, it's just all business, baby. It's just all business, and Hollywood is some of the greatest business because it is phenomenal for both advertising and propaganda, which is what Hollywood's initial use is, propaganda. I could give you a history lesson on that. Let's try not to get too far away from the plot, which is The Rock is going to be our president. There is predictive programming that is going on with this. But beyond some governmental conspiracy, the question is this actually proving the fact that we live in a simulation reality? Because we have some intersectionality here, and I want to go ahead and make that abundantly clear with how The Rock fulfills the Hercules prophecy, but how that's also being used as a political test machine to see if he's ready to run as the people's president, and perhaps even as the face for full disclosure whenever we make contact with alternate dimensional beings. As this was foretold in The Fifth Element, I believe that he is playing the role of the president in this situation. And that somebody like Kevin Hart is, actually how we interact with, it's how you beat the bad guy, with your heart. But we'll get to that, so listen. Ronald Reagan, through his movie roles, represented America at a time when they were wholesome. He played the cowboy a lot, he played the Dudley Do-Good. He wasn't quite John Wayne, right? But he played the American hero enough times to where he stood for ideals, where John Wayne stood for the strength. I mean, the guy's 6'5", what are you gonna do? Ronald Reagan is a fantastic orator. He galvanizes the audience. In fact, the CIA and political machine first introduced Reagan into politics by using him as a spokesman for some of the more conservative policies, particularly in the 60s. Okay, so through the 60s and 70s, Ronald Reagan, piggybacking off of this wholesome cowboy image in America's face, right, America's cowboy, is being used to push political agenda. Right, so he's a shoo-in then naturally for Senate. Of what? Ding! California, which has what? Boom! Hollywood. Let us continue. So as time develops, he goes from being a beloved cultural figure into a well-spoken politician who has surrounded himself with great political minds while he acts as the galvanizing heartpiece. Correct? This is Ronald Reagan. Essentially the American mythology brought to life as president. Now, we've seen this before. Before there was the great televisions, right? We had the radio, we had the great American myth. We get this with the throwback of the name Roosevelt, right? As in Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who piggybacked off of the name of his more famous cousin, Uncle Teddy Roosevelt, who was what? The strongman president. Who went what? Through the jungles. Okay, constantly going through the jungles. He worked out. He was a boxer. He was an explorer. He had his own third party, right? Tying it back to The Rock, how many movies have we seen The Rock go to the center of the earth or fight his way through the jungle? There's a Teddy Roosevelt parallel there, the strong-arm president, but we'll come back. Reagan. He's a cowboy. America sees him as a cowboy, and his policies mimic his politics. And what's great is, at the time of his, I guess you would say, retirement from Hollywood and stepping into politics, you have Dirty Harry, you have Clint Eastwood really holding up the conservative law and order Nixon point of view of the dirty cop who needs to be able to infiltrate the now new crooked Serpico streets. Right? That was a lot, but you have to go through 70s culture of post-idealism, okay? Civil rights have happened. Now we have an economic tank. Crime and drug rates seem to be up. You can't really do anything with the police, so it takes what? A strong-arm cop. It takes some strong-arm policies. It takes what? It takes a cowboy. Because Clint Eastwood is Dirty Harry, right? But he's also the outlaw Josie Wales. So, with Reagan, we hold to the old-school cowboy image, and with Clint Eastwood, we have him enacting the cowboy ruggedness that becomes the policies of the 70s that is then championed by Ronald Reagan in the 80s, making his image of being the American strongman the platform that he runs on in the Republican Party, getting tough on crime and getting America back on track with business. He came in to save the day and be the white knight, just like he was in all of his movies. Are you following me? So here, we have theater as a way of building a candidate into political office to move an agenda. How long did it take? Relatively speaking, not long at all. It was well cultivated, and we were able to push him along the entire time. So Reagan was good out and out for like 40 years for multiple reasons, right? Whether it's Hollywood pushing the industry, making money, pushing political agendas, becoming a president, becoming an icon. Good God, Reagan was very useful, very useful. We gotta make another one, man. So then you get Arnold Schwarzenegger. Who's what? Republican. From where? California. Pretty much following this same plot line. We have immigrant who comes from nothing, pulls himself up by his bootstraps, becomes a bodybuilder. Teddy Roosevelt becomes an action hero, right? He plays in a lot of army-based movies, time-traveling movies, things of this nature. His action hero status is then utilized to catapult him into politics. Who does he marry? He marries Marie Shriver, who was what? She's a Kennedy, right? So you have your strong arm politics, you have your strong man being used as a political figure, following the exact same narrative, marrying him into political money with Marie Shriver, who is a Kennedy. He is a shoo-in for California. Boom, again. Then we have the ultimate test. And by the way, we'll caveat back, we're going to move back to Jesse Ventura and how professional wrestling gets brought into politics. We've seen this happen many times, including Donald Trump. We'll come back. But first, we're on Trump. And this is important because we're talking about the strong man as president. We're talking about the strong man as savior, but we're also talking about how this narrative is built up in public and how public features and public figures are created in front of our eyes to be gods. New American gods. The Rock is Hercules. Hercules is Balarama. He is the Brahma Bull. So what was Trump? Trump is our reality TV president. Trump was the field test and also the nuclear bomb that basically changed out our economy. He was the great changeover, but he was also proof that the American public is entirely ready to vote off of an emotional appeal and what they've seen on TV. We know Donald Trump is a great businessman because he has been seen in effect as a great businessman since what? The 80s. We know his face, we know his story, we know who he is as a public figure, we know his mythology, and thus we voted for Donald Trump regardless of the political rules, regardless of anything. In fact, there's a strong religious movement behind him. There was QAnon. There was a cult of personality. So finally, the American public as a whole is ready to vote for their president like it is American Idol. America is officially ready for American Idol. Boom. That's Trump. And now, we have The Rock. Part 3. The Rock is going to be president. Maktub. It was written. Okay. So as we previously discussed, the Reagan effect was also used to bolster up Trump. The concept of the strongman president, especially with mythology, has already been utilized. The great American hero. We've also seen how people's characters have been used to support their platforms. For example, Reagan was tough on crime, just like the cowboys that he represented, bolstered by the more modern Dirty Harry, which is Clint Eastwood. Okay? We're taking it there. So if we're looking at The Rock as a political candidate, and we're looking at him as what would his platform be, let's first let's first take a look at his IMDb. All right, let's take a look at The Rock as a fantastic setup in his pedigree, okay? We first get The Rock, even before we get him as a professional wrestler, okay? We get him as an athlete. He's a football player. He plays for the Miami Hurricanes. All right, he comes from wrestling lineage. We have watched The Rock grow up in professional sports as a strongman, okay? We've seen him go from, Rocky Maivia all the way to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and he then becomes the Hollywood star that he is, the people's champ, the Brahma Bull, Hercules, okay? So, where do we start? Right. How many times has The Rock played a mythical figure? He played a god he played Hercules. He's played the Scorpion King. He was the god Moana. He is soon to play Black Adam, right? The Ascended Man, Black Adam, the predecessor god of Shazam. And he's also played the Tooth Fairy. Oh, yeah, Hollywood-wise, The Rock wore the dress. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, too, so he's politically connected there. How many times has The Rock played somebody strong for America? Let's see, Fast and the Furious, he's an FBI agent. There's a theme with FBI, CIA, and heist movies. So Fast and the Furious, special division within CIA or the FBI or weapons. One of the three-letter acronyms, okay? He's in the movie Central Intelligence. Skyscraper. Southland Tales has him being an actor who then becomes politically involved in what appears to be nuclear into the world. Pain and Gain plays a cop. Driver, it's a heist. Get Smart, he's a secret agent. Right? So we already have The Rock being somebody who's involved with law enforcement but is a bit of a maverick. For example, Walking Tall. The Walking Tall connection. The Rock is the sheriff. The Rock is Hercules. Let me tell you how The Rock is Hercules and how they are really building upon this mythology. Okay? Walking Tall is, it's a remake movie, and it's about, this sheriff who comes back to his small town and basically cleans up the corruption in, the corrupt police system. And he gets beaten down because of it, but he stands up to the man to come clean this job up, all right? So you have him to come up, be the strong man, clean up and save the day. That is Teddy Roosevelt, all right? That's the strong man. That's also Ventura. We're going to come clean this crap up, all right? But check this out. If that isn't enough for you, the next person who played in the Walking Tall sequel was Kevin Sorbo. For those of you who don't know, Kevin Sorbo played Hercules, okay? Kevin Sorbo is like before there was The Rock, Kevin Sorbo was Hercules. You thought of Hercules, you thought of Kevin Sorbo. So you have The Rock playing Hercules, and then you have The Rock playing in Walking Tall, and then you have Kevin Sorbo now also playing in Walking Tall, cementing that Hercules connection, okay? Also, the baton gets passed from Schwarzenegger's legacy to The Rock. In the movie Walking Tall, also in The Rundown, all right, where Schwarzenegger makes several cameo appearances to basically pass the baton on to The Rock, because The Rock ends up playing all the type of roles that Schwarzenegger would play. And if you don't see that, we come back to the movie Twins, where Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito play a set of off twins, with Arnold being the big strong one, DeVito being the little funny one. We see this combo again as The Rock and Kevin Hart playing in Twins. So not only do you have the political handoff of Schwarzenegger handing off his movie roles to The Rock, there's also the political connection. And if there isn't enough of the Rock Hercules mythology, you also get The Rock playing Hercules, and the guy who plays Hercules playing in the same role as The Rock. The Rock is Kevin Sorbo. The Rock is Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is like the conflagration of the gods. Okay? Kevin Sorbo also plays a space commander in Andromeda. That's something that's going to be important. All right? The mythology of Kevin Sorbo, the mythology of Arnold Schwarzenegger, all goes to The Rock. Right? The Rock is our space Hercules. Doom. He was our Hercules in Doom. He's fighting the aliens. How many times has The Rock fought the aliens? I mean, he even fights magical aliens, right? He's G.I. Joe. And who did he fight? The giant snake Hydra. I'm sorry, Cobra, because everybody knows that Cobra and Hydra are the exact same thing. You can even Google that. So Hercules fought Hydra, G.I. Joe fought Hydra. Hydra is what? They're like hidden Nazis. Okay? G.I. Joe, he becomes what? They're like a criminal outlaw group at some point because Hydra has infiltrated and taken over the government. Who talks about stuff like this? Jesse Ventura. Jesse Ventura said that politics is just like professional wrestling. You know what? Vince McMahon was like, damn, you're right, Jesse. Because then we have 4 professional wrestlers in the political sphere. If we're talking top down, in other words, who's probably the most powerful, we have to go with Linda McMahon via Vince McMahon, right? They are heavy in Senate. You also get Jesse Ventura. You have the guy, Kane. You also have JBL, right? So you see the transition in the road between wrestler to political candidate. It's been driven like 4 times. The role between actor and presidential candidate has been driven twice, if not 3 times. Even the fact that Donald Trump was in professional wrestling. Now, check this out. Trump screwed up the Republican Party. Okay, they're having problems. In fact, there's talks of a split off. A new party. Okay? This is like Teddy Roosevelt and the Bull Moose Party. And who would be a great third-party candidate who could pull the populace together? And if you wanted to be a moderate Republican Party, who would you put it behind? The Rock. Because The Rock also has some very Obama-like qualities to him. You know what I mean? He's black and Samoan. He's the Afro-Asiatic Hercules come to save the day. The movies that he's been in, you can already tell that he's against the military-industrial complex but is equipped to fight them. You can tell this in G.I. Joe. You can see this in Southland Tales. Even though he's a strong man, he's also in touch with his feminine side. He plays the Tooth Fairy, right? He's good with kids, the Gridiron Gang, so he's high on education. Fighting with the family. We have a personal mythology on The Rock. We literally have a show called The Young Rock, okay? And The Rock is what? He's running for president. Okay, there's also the mythology of his life. The Rock is living mythology, and he's being built as a god into our minds. Now, the question is this some broad CIA plan? And it could be. But do we stop there? I would say, don't get so focused on conspiracy and move a little higher. I say this is actually proof that we are living within a simulation. Because The Rock is representing our modern day Hercules. The fact that he called himself the Brahma Bull, I don't even know if he knows it. Like with all of these connections, right? The movies that he plays and what he represents, because he pretty much is the dirty, hairy cop, right? His career has been pushed in that direction. How many times has he gone to the jungle? Jumanji, Rampage, San Andreas, Jungle Cruise, Journey 1 through 3, where he goes to the center of the earth. This represents the underworld like Orpheus, also alternate dimensions, right? They're preparing us for some shit. They really are. Let me see. Moana, Hercules, Scorpion King, they're preparing us for ancient gods. They're preparing us for ancient gods, right? Because he's always going into the past or grabbing some ancient artifact that changes history. And they really, really tie him to Hercules. Hercules, they tie him to Balarama. Balarama is Baal. Okay? Balarama is Bel. Balarama is Marduk. Balarama is that hero king. And that's why they're pushing him to be the great hero, the great reformer, the strong man. It was written. It was written in the mythologies, and it's written in his Hollywood mythologies. Let's talk about Black Adam. Adam is the first of man. Adam is the first of man made in God's image. Adam ties to Hercules, okay? Because Adam isn't just about being the first man, it's the first man in God's image, the first Adonis, the first Adonai, right? The first man god, demigod, who moves into God status. Black Adam is about a slave rebellion. It is about a slave who gets the powers of Shazam and wishes to cause change in the universe. You see, the first Shazam was actually like Magneto, and who wanted to use his power to free the slaves. Black Adam, The Rock. Aldous Hodge is going to be in this. Aldous Hodge has been in how many different slave shows? Right? Put it all together. So who's writing this narrative? Or is there secret Hollywood meetings that's happening in the background? I mean, yes, sure, there's already a connection between the CIA, the CFR, and how Hollywood writes scripts, how they release movies, and then how they tie those movies to political cycles. Listen, that's already been proven. That's not rocket science. We can talk about that later. We've already established how The Rock's personal mythos, right? Because we know who he is. There's books, there's movies, there's video games. He's our childhood hero. Listen, I'm 33 years old, and The Rock is a childhood hero of mine. That's the millennial generation, right? In fact, not only does The Rock line up for the Ronald Reagan role, it would appear as if there's a Ronald Reagan time cycle happening politically. This is history repeating itself, but is it history repeating itself so that we get some sort of grander disclosure, right? A repeat as a second act. All right. This is where we start moving into simulation theory, because we have moved into the age of Aquarius. It could be argued that these events are being staged and aligned with the changing of the times to move mankind into the next age of reality, etc., etc. I'm not going to go there. Politics and history don't repeat themselves, but they rhyme. That means that there's motifs and archetypes, and we've already established that The Rock has many archetypes that not only are events through the roles that he takes, but also his political connections, and how he is repeating the same cycles as, say, Ronald Reagan, Arnold Schwarzenegger before him, Kevin Sorbo, who's been used as a test pilot, and Jesse Ventura, as well as Kane. I'm sorry if I forgot your real name, Kane, and JBL, just John Bradshaw Lakefield. You know what I'm saying? The political line has already been drawn there. The Hollywood CIA line's already been drawn there. We already know that there is a connection there. So let's talk about how it's operating as a time cycle. Trump is like the new Nixon. Okay? So check this out. You've got Nixon. Nixon gets impeached. At the post-era of Nixon, which is right after the civil rights and civil liberties and all that, and then government corruption, okay, we get Gerald Ford. We get Gerald Ford, and then we get Jimmy Carter, and then we also get the economic depression of the 70s. All right, the 70s was cool because you have the two races getting together, and they had disco for a while, and it looked like everything was fine, and then everybody got unemployed, and then apparently hooked on drugs, and then the world went to shit because there was too much civil liberty, right? Nixon comes in, starts cracking down on police, then it turns out he's a crook, he gets impeached. Donald Trump totally represents the law and order Nixon approach, basically meets the same fate. He is the zeitgeist. He is that desire to rein it back in and to keep things conservative. And you know what that means, okay? You know what that means. So next you get the old bumbling Gerald Ford. We literally had a repeat of the Gerald Ford incident of Joe Biden tripping up the stairs. So boom, he's Gerald Ford. That's one thing, right? He's here to clean up the mess and be the interim president and flip things around. Kind of like a... What do you do for Kennedy? Like it with JBL, LBJ. Holy shit! Yeah, JBL, LBJ. There you go. Right? There's that whole transition. Right? Keep an eye on Israel. See if we get some wars going on there. Right? Real American hero fighting Hydra, shit like that. Anyway, next we have Reagan coming in with the same spirit of Nixon. Law and order, but a more wide family-based appeal. Because Jimmy Carter was considered loving but soft and unable to handle the economic policies and didn't handle the terror situation correct with what? Israel. Right? And so they wanted somebody a little bit stronger. Biden's presidency is essentially the gap we get with Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter. Right? And then next, there will be the next president, which will be somebody stronger and popular. And my guess is it's going to be The Rock, because that's the timing there. And also, there's a great fulfilling of this Hercules character that they're building up. Bigger than that, I believe they start moving towards full disclosure. Because if you look at how presidents, especially popular presidents, are represented by their platform. Their image is their platform. Donald Trump was big business. We knew him as the business guy, the apprentice, right? We knew Ronald Reagan as what, the cowboy who came to clean up town, right? What does The Rock's movies tell us about what he's going to tell us about? Military-industrial complex, underground black market activity, and how it's actually connected with the CIA. There's tons of that. There's going to be police reform and politics. Crime's a big element. Jumanji, explorations to the center of the earth. Also parallel realities. That's a thing. Parallel realities is a huge thing, right? Same thing with Moana, moving out of your island into a parallel reality. Perhaps facing aliens. He's the strong commander in Doom. I would like to point you back to Independence Day, okay? When you have the strong president fighting the aliens. And I believe that we're being roundabouted to the movie, The Fifth Element. We're being roundabouted to The Fifth Element because watch this. In The Fifth Element, an ancient race comes back, pre-Egyptian, with the idea that the world is going to be destroyed. 2012. Right? And a fifth element is created to protect mankind. The president, who is in charge of America and thus the world at the time, is somebody who is big and strong. The guy who played, was it Tiny? I forgot what Tiny's last name is, but he played the big, Debo from Friday, big strong president. Now, whenever inquired about this president, Corbin Dallas, Bruce Willis's mother, goes, what does the president know? He's an actor. I believe The Rock is going to be that actor who is the president who connects us with cosmic life or interdimensional life. And the reason why is because he's finishing the job that Ronald Reagan started. Ronald Reagan said, how would the world feel if there was, if we found out that there is actually life beyond us? Right? He basically, he was a strong UFO enthusiologist. UFO disclosure has already become a thing. There's Gaia TV. There's been tons of press releases about the UFOs being a real thing now, right? So if there were ever an idea for, say, a false flag attack of some sort of cosmic invasion, or we've seen San Andreas, so some earthquakes that split off California into the sea, we're gonna want the strong president, and it's probably gonna be The Rock. Funny thing is, even though he's the strong president, it might be somebody like Kevin Hart, who's actually the real savior of the day. Why do I say this? How many times have Kevin Hart and The Rock been paired together? There's the theme of the twins. If The Rock is Hercules, and Hercules is Balarama, Balarama is the older brother of who? Krishna. Krishna is who? Christ. Also the Black Christ. Kevin Hart. You understand? So there we have another story narrative playing out. Everybody says how special Kevin Hart is. Right? As a humanitarian, as a comedian, as a spokesperson. So you have the muscle and you have the message. Right? You have the president and you have the priest who speaks heart. And then now you have somebody who has been prepared and is in the American mind ready to handle all of the cosmic things, like people from Egypt coming back in time from 10,000 years, just like they did in what? The Scorpion King and the Fifth Element. He's ready for space aliens from the moon that look like the same aliens from Independence Day as we've seen in Doom. He's ready to tackle the military-industrial complex as well as lead it, as we've seen in G.I. Joe and Fast and the Furious. He's tough on crime, even when crime is tough on him. As we've seen in The Rundown, he is Hercules, he is the people's champ, he is the Brahma Bull, the Apis Bull, the most electrifying man in the world and in sports entertainment, or as we like to call it, politics. That man is going to be president. And it is written in the stars. It is written on everything, including his birth chart. And so, using The Rock as a study of basically destiny, we can see how there is both a connection to Hollywood, mythology, and the CIA, but also to what could be simulation theory, because, as they say in Battlestar Galactica, folks, all of this has happened before, and all of this shall happen again. If you want to see what's going on in reality, check out the Rock's movies and use this as the key. He is the solar hero that is being built up to connect us to what? The inner world, ancient times, possibly space aliens, the military-industrial complex. But that's okay, because he's going to fight Hydra for you, right? He's the Nemean lion. He's untouchable. They can't take him down. He is the strong man, and he is here to protect you. Which leads us to our last incarnation of Hercules, if not the most important. Another hero for Hercules is Ogmios. O-G-M-I-O-S. Now, in Celtic mythology, he's also called the Dagda, which is like the high chief king of the gods, right? But Ogmios is actually Hercules as an older man, okay? And instead of him being known for his strength, he is known for his oratory ability and his ability to move audiences with his speech, which is the most important aspect of being a political leader, the ability to galvanize the audience. We have the Rock being primed to become Hercules Ogmios. Hercules will defeat Memnon, as he did in The Scorpion King, as he did in the animated movie Hercules. Hercules will save the day. He will regale us with his tales, galvanize the people to become one world, as he heralds us into contact with something outside of ourselves. He is the best that man has to offer. He is Black Adam, and he is here to save the day. But actually, he is the harbinger for the real one who will save the day. The fifth element. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope I've opened your eyes a little bit, given you the raw perspective of what's going on in the world, and maybe giving you a little light show of how the world works, how prognostication, yeah, that's right, prognostication really works, how the divine cycles are utilized in our political cycles in our news feed. Oh, and last point about The Rock being the strongman Teddy Roosevelt type. Who's supporting The Rock becoming president? He's going on shows like what, Joe Rogan? The Rock represents the last of the strong man. Man at this point is basically becoming a house whipping boy. We miss our action hero status. The Rock is what men want to be. And there is becoming a resurgence of men feeling displaced in the world and looking to people, men like The Rock, as their guru, their ideal. The Rock is going to become president, ladies and gentlemen, and they're just priming the pump. They already wrote the story, they already gave you the steps, it's already written in the stars, and it's connected to mythology that goes back and predates even Egypt. And if you don't see it in the books, you can go see it in the theaters. And if you don't believe it, it's coming to a theater near you soon called The Rock Takes 2038. Or is it 2032? Whatever 8 more years is. We might get 8 years of Biden. Anyway, I digress. Keep an eye on the stars, folks. Truth really is stranger than fiction. This has been Midnight Miles. Live long and prosper. May the odds be up in your favor. Next time when we come back, we're going to talk about Bill Gates and how he really is trying to run the world, and how it really is safe to talk about it now, and how he might be Voldemort. Until then, kiddies, live long and prosper.